time difference. I literally just woke up. I probably still have sleep in my eye, to be quite honest with you.
What are you talking
That's
about?
I'm
Time
like, you look
difference?
so pretty. The time
What
difference,
time
like
difference are you talking about?
you got tea in your hand. You got this glow.
It's like 11
You got the
a.m. over
halter
there,
top.
though. It's like
It's what?
it's 11 a.m. Like 11 a.m. over there. Talk about this time difference.
That's still the morning. What you mean?
I guess.
That's like just waking up time.
I guess.
At
Yes, it's
least for me.
3:47. I'm just trying to feel good on the outside because the inside's a little iffy. But
I feel that. I feel
yeah.
that.
You see, I'm drinking my tea, which reminds me of like my favorite episode, Tea with Queen and Jay. They always ask each other when they start, like, what are you drinking today? And they're always drinking some tea. My tea today is actually some leaves. I don't know.
I was gonna say it's very green. I've never seen
I
a
added
tea
greenery
green.
to it too, but it's called Stonebreakers. My roommate gave it to me, and it's actually from a plant somewhere outside. But it's Stonebreakers. Stonebreakers. Let me see. Stonebreaker is what they are, the leaves. And I have what's called typhoid. It's a bacterial infection. Yes. I don't think it ever left. I don't think it ever left. I think that's a different story, but I think it like laid dormant, which kind of resurfaced. And so for people who are unaware of what typhoid is, it's a bacterial kind of infection that spreads through contaminated food and people touching themselves and then touching your food, or it can be in water. Like a salmonella type situation, not washing properly their hands properly.
Okay.
They could be in food, can be passed on. But honestly, I'm wondering, I'm just trying to figure out, did I get it again or did it just lay dormant and I reactivated it? But I do need to fully cleanse my body out with some herbs or something like that to really get it gone. I just think it was like chilling in the background. But yeah, that's
I'm sending you healing vibes. I think the last time we talked, I said I was talking to someone from Ghana, and he's like really big on like onion water.
Okay.
Drinking onion water. So I'm gonna just like pass that along. Maybe that can help.
Onion
like
water.
Putting the onions in your sock, drinking onion water. He said it really like just takes all the bad stuff out, so
like
I don't know. Try it. I haven't tried it.
Cleansing.
Very cleansing.
I love onions now. I ain't never drinking no onion water, but I'm gonna look into it.
Yeah.
You say he's from Ghana?
Yes, girl. And he's really big on like,
huh? Yeah. Girl, he's what? Who is he? Where'd you meet him? What's going on with that?
Social media. The DMs.
Okay. The DMs.
The DMs.
I thought you made him a dating app.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a direct message on dating apps. Oh, so okay. I like to say it more broad because like I'm still not in the like comfortable enough to be like, yeah, Tinder, so I'm like,
yeah,
social media. Let's look at broad.
Yeah.
But yeah, specifically Tinder. It's interesting. The whole that thing and like how it's like transpiring, but it's great. Nice vibes. Right. I'm loving it.
Well, let me take a break and say welcome back to Black Around the World, a space devoted to having conversations that connect, enlighten, heal, and build community amongst Black people globally. I'm Ray.
And I'm Queen.
Thank you. So you're building community with Black people globally through your dating app.
Oh my God. And we went there.
What do I have to?
Yes. Okay. So it's, like I said, this is the first time that I've gone through said app. I was very reluctant, but I am also very surprised. And I think the little bit of nuggets you gave me about Ghanaian men has been spot on. But we didn't go too deep, but I was like, Ray was right. Ray was definitely right, but it's great though. It's been a
That's
vibe
good.
for
I'm
sure.
glad. You have to keep us updated,
I
as soon as I get
will.
to, and whatever you need, my experience, I think I'm probably throwing in the hat and like, I don't know, in dating
No,
here.
why?
I don't know. It's a lot. We can talk. That's another story for another day. But I
Oh,
do want to
oh,
talk. Oh shit. Got a little excited. About this break I'm taking from the male species.
really?
But yeah, that's a different story. But listen, guess what I'm doing?
What are you
I
doing?
want to tell people I'm taking tree lessons.
What the
Tree
hell is
lessons,
that?
which is one of the many languages in Ghana. There's like 70
Oh,
plus
it's a
a
language.
language. Yeah,
Okay. I'm
tree.
like, are you growing trees? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not tree, it's like tree.
That
And I'm
it
like,
sounds like
I'm
the
still
same
probably
word.
not great at it, but tree.
No.
Is one of the more prominent, but then other people might say there's others that are more prominent, but I had to pick one, and that's the one I picked. And I started taking lessons.
Give us something. Give
I mean,
us
I'm
give us
looking at my notes. Give me a second. Okay, we
okay.
like picking up a second language is really a little difficult for me. I've been told that I don't hear sounds. I've actually been told by aptitude tests that learning a second language may be challenging for me. And so
Oh,
let me see.
we're gonna rebuke that. We're gonna rebuke that. Positive.
You sound like my mom. Thank you. Which hopefully my mama ain't listening to this because I didn't told them that I wasn't doing, like, my health was a little compromised, because they gonna be like, girl, if you don't get on the plane,
Oh
stop
yeah.
playing.
Yeah.
Uh
It's all right, Mom. She's gonna drink this onion water. We're gonna be
I'm
fine.
gonna drink this onion water. Let me see. Mehoye fe. So mehoye fe. Mehoye fe. Mehoye fe.
Mm,
I
my whole
am
face.
I am beautiful.
Oh, I love
I
it.
am beautiful, or my whole face. um, let me
Oh, I love
see. Let
that.
me see. Let me
Me joye
see.
fe.
Oh, okay. Meden. So I is meden, meden de Raynell. Meden de Raynell. My name is Raynell.
Me dende right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's like, I guess.
I only have done 2 lessons. Oh, I've only
Okay.
done 2 lessons. Let me see. I'm gonna try to do
You
some one
almost
other day.
bilingual. I love
I'm
it.
bilingual. Long story short, I'm bilingual. Yes, I'm learning the lessons. Yes.
I
What
love
else
it
is going
though.
on?
So
Yeah.
that's I guess the main language spoken out there, or you said that's one of many.
One of them, it's like 70 plus, and depending on where, like what region you're in Ghana, like there's some that's predominantly spoken. So like the Gans speak, girl, I'm not even gonna act like I know. Sorry guys. Ga, they speak that. And then northern people speak one language. Uh
Okay.
yeah. Anyways.
Okay. I'm here for it. I
Shanti
know.
speak a language. Yeah.
My new friend. Um, he's from Accra, and
Mm-hmm.
girl, like, is quadlingual. I don't know a lot of languages, so I'm not surprised that there's like a lot of languages out there.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna see what his main one is. Maybe he can help. Maybe you can get free lessons. Are you paying for these lessons?
I am paying. And of course, like my friends are like, you don't have to pay. I'm like, so you gonna teach me? You gonna take time out to teach me? Like, come on, let's start. I'm like, no, that's not how it works. Like, I
Yes,
actually need somebody who, like, I'm literally learning consonants and vowels and the sounds right now. Like, you're not gonna do that. You're just gonna try to start talking to me. I'm literally learning the order of words and the rules, which I'm learning. There's rules but no rules. But same thing with English though, right? Anyways,
I heard English is hard to, like, the hardest language to learn though.
yeah, I
So you
wouldn't want
should
to
be fine
ever.
because you know
Oh,
English.
nah, I wouldn't want to ever, because I tried to learn Hangul, which is like Korean, and that's a totally different ball game, and that was difficult.
Did you learn anything?
I learned how to read the characters, so they have characters, and that I was very proud of that, because that was something that, you know, a lot of people, they'll see Asian languages in general and see characters, they'd be like, how you know it's Korean? You know, but once you learn it, something clicks. And I think that's how language is. I think hopefully I'll get on here 3 episodes later and it has clicked already for me.
So
But
basically, you're trilingual.
because girl, no, that's so sweet of you. I'm not. I'm not trilingual. I can read Korean. Having a conversation is a different story.
I mean, but okay. I'm just saying that's a lot too, to be able to read Korean.
Mm-hmm.
That's saying something. At least you know what you're reading, right?
Yeah. And oftentimes you'll see, like in Korea, they would write the words and phonetically it's written in English. So if it's like car, they'll have the sounds, which there's no R sound in Korea. Is there no sound in Hangul? Because my name, they'll be like, instead of Raynell, they'll be like Laynell. Like L replaces the R sound. But that's the thing. They're like Laynell. Anyways, so yeah, I mean, speaking of connections, I did want to share how, and I've spoken about it before, but like things clicking around when they're supposed to click. I think I told you I was reading the book of Power of Now, and it's talking about, and I've shared this about being in a present moment and how like the answer to enlightenment and everything, it really is like being present, letting go of like this concept of time. While we have clock time, but there's psychological time where we're constantly either living in the past or living in the future. Because I've always felt that I'll be somewhere beautiful, even like when I'm traveling, but my mind will be like somewhere else, or just like not as present as I want it to be. I don't think I was aware that was what was happening, but I would just be like, something about now is great, but there's something else that's like keeping me from it totally enjoying it. I'm like, now is good, but what am I worried about? What am I fearing? But it's just like the mind's proneness to be like feeding you different thoughts. And, you know, I love this concept of not identifying with your thoughts. But it also talks about like the intelligence of the body and how our mind isn't the only intelligence. Our body holds an intelligence. So I told you I started taking these classes with Erin Trent Johnson.
Oh, yes.
And when she was on our podcast, she has a coaching session, which this has been really different for me, Queen, because I even had a moment where I was like, y'all, I'm not getting what's going on in these coaching sessions, because it felt like everybody was clicking. It was clicking for everybody. But for me, it was just like, I'm like, where's the content? Where's the concepts? Where's the PowerPoint? But it's not that. It's like, and I think it's cool that I'm reading that book and that book is finally resonating, which I've had it and read through it maybe a couple of times. But now at this point, I feel like at this point in my life, it just works. I'm just getting it to an extent. But hers, like, it's a group coaching session, and we're literally having this time where we're like tapping into our body. I don't know how she does it. She's like, this isn't therapy, but I get more out of this than I ever did when I was paying for therapy. It's like
really, I need to tap in. I know
like,
you sent me that one thing, but
yeah, definitely you should go to like her. She has different types of offerings, but she'll literally like coach someone, and what we're all witnessing. And so it's like the power of like witnessing someone else experience something and work through something and process something, and what that does for you and how you see yourself, and that and how we all kind of get somewhere, arrive at a space just by witnessing other people process and heal in front of us. And so like one of the sessions, she was like, name something that you want to process. What do you want to work through? And people were like, my relationship with money. People were like, my imposter syndrome, or like my need to or like, I want to be cared for, but then I don't know how to be cared for, like different things. And then so she'll prompt you, and I don't know how she'll like talk to you, and then it's like she'll notice you grab yourself, or like she'll be like, where in your body are you feeling this right now? And then like that, the awareness of what you're feeling in your body, and you go there, and then you kind of analyze what that is telling you. It's a beautiful.
That sounds powerful.
It is powerful, because I felt like my body, I've been aware that my body has spoken to me, but to an degree, I wasn't aware. I didn't pay attention to it. Like, for example, when I sat down with someone and my body, like I felt fire in my belly, and I was like, oh shit, that this means danger ahead with this person. Or like when I was going through, a level of like anxiety and depression, due to these triggers. I would often feel it on my left side, and my hip would give out. I would just like, I would carry that in my hips or in my body. And so it's just like our body carries a lot of messages that when we're in tune with the intelligence of that, it can hold a lot of answers for us, healing for us. So yeah.
Anyways, I'm gonna tap in. I'm definitely gonna plan. I have to be intentional about it, but I know she has some powerful stuff going on. When we had our conversation with her, I said I wanted to sit in on one, so I'm definitely going to make time to do so. We've had some amazing people on. We have some excited. Speaking of that, we had someone in our waiting room right now. We done had some amazing people on. Let me see.
And I wanted to hear about your Juneteenth thing real quick.
What Juneteenth? Oh, in Seattle. You talking about that when I went to Seattle?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. Well, first off, we're just gonna say this. DFW airport is a hot ass mess. When I showed up, they had everyone evacuate Terminal E. And so when I got there, I'm like, what is going on? I thought I was gonna be late for my flight, which technically I was, because had a connecting flight. But anyway, missed the connecting flight. So I had to wait like 3 hours in Utah, which I was the only Black person in that whole airport.
Okay.
Yeah, it was crazy. But got to Seattle, went straight to the airport. It was, I didn't know what to expect. Every time Tony asked me to come to Seattle, I really never know what to expect. But that next morning, he picked me up and he took me to, I guess
Who's Tony?
Tony's the man who owns the theater. Tony Benton. He owns a radio station and a newspaper in Seattle, but he also owns one of the oldest theaters in Seattle. He has, an extensive history of just like being a musician, living in LA, New York. But he was the person that asked me to come 2 years ago to speak about what I was doing in Tulsa. And so when this organization in Seattle was planning their 45th Juneteenth celebration, they came to him, asked him, like, what do you think we should have? Who should we have? And so he recommended me. So he picked me up that morning, Saturday morning. And I guess it's like their equivalent to like a rec center or something, but the festival took place outside. So they had a stage, so many different vendors. It was free food. Like, it was a beautiful event. And so I was nervous because, me, I don't prepare for anything. So I'm like, I don't know how long they want me to speak. I know they want me to speak about, my family history, but what should I actually tap on? And so I was just super nervous. But then I was like, God, just like, just give me strength, be with me. And the lady on the stage, she was like, after this next song, we're going to have a special presentation by Queen. And I just like, my heart started beating. But they played Best Friend by Brandy. I was like, thank you, God, because that's my favorite song. I was like, It just gave me so much peace. So before I actually went up there, like, I started dancing and then people were dancing. I was like, oh. So long story short, it was amazing. Like everything just had like a purpose, like though I was fearful, everything just aligned in such a beautiful way. People enjoyed it. Like I was on stage, I was like, just don't repeat yourself, just like trying to tell myself, like, say things that are important, queen. Don't repeat yourself. Like I didn't know. But
that was an embodiment practice. You move through fear, like you move that energy.
I did. It was I guess so. I did it unintentionally, but long story short, Tony said I did an amazing job, and just being myself it shined through, and it was the best thing ever. So I was like, thank you. Because I was even on stage, like he recorded it. I'm like, I have stage fright, but we're gonna do this. Like, and they were like, that's funny. I'm like, it's not, but
you
we're
always
gonna rock
name
with
it. You're like, it's not funny. You always name it. But anyway, thank you for sharing the experience with us.
Of course. So yeah, that was Juneteenth. Happy belated Juneteenth to everyone.
Yes. Hello, Nduulwa.
Yes.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Ray. Hi, Queen.
Hello. How are you? Both of y'all look beautiful with these halter tops.
I know. I feel like we're late. We have the same theme going on. I'm loving what you're doing.
I didn't remember.
How are you today?
Yes, loving the look. I'm good. Yeah, happy to be chatting with y'all today. And yeah, this is like the first thing I've done today. It's Saturday morning over here. So I'm excited to start my day with y'all.
We're happy to have you. First of all, aren't we like the same time zone, right?
Yeah, in the same state. So
we're both
Texas.
I would think so.
Yes, both in Texas.
I was trying to tell Ray, I'm like, I know it's 11, but it's still early. Like, it's pretty early, especially for me who sleeps in late. But you got ready and you got all the things. I love it.
Yeah,
y'all look great.
Thank you.
I'm glad
for everyone who's listening to the podcast, both of them look amazing. I look like I just rolled out of bed.
Well, you sound amazing. So that's all that matters. So and we know Nduulwa because she's the host of a podcast called Dear Diaspora, which we'll get into later. But just to give you a little context, her podcast is a podcast that exists to host meaningful African-centered conversations about all things culture, business, mental health, politics, and more. So I really just want to start about like, we do want to get into Dear Diaspora, but we want to get into the person that you are, and who thinks of such an amazing space and creates such an amazing space. Like what went into the inner workings of you who could create an amazing space. Because I love your podcast. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you are. Let's just have a conversation that we'll pick and probe it and go back and forth. Tell us about who you are, where you're from, what you care about.
Yes. Well, thank you again for having me, and thank you for the intro and letting folks know a little bit about Dear Diaspora. So a bit about me, I'm originally from Zambia. So I was born in Zambia, lived there until I was 10. And then I moved to the United States with my family, and I've lived in the US for, I think, almost 18 years. So more than half my life. I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska, which was quite an interesting experience. I lived there for 14 years, which was crazy to think about. Lived there for 14 years, went there, did all my schooling there, high school, college, grad school. And then after that, I spent about a year in Kansas City, Missouri, and now I've been in San Antonio, Texas for about 3 years.
I want to pause with the geography. You like went here. Like, can we go back to Zambia for a second? Well, like one, tell us, like, I don't think a lot of people know. Like, tell us where it is. What language is spoken there? Like, tell us about like some of the things that are like when you think of Zambia. Am I saying because I feel like you said it? You said Zambia or
Zambia,
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, however, you're able to say it, but yeah, I say Zambia.
Okay.
So Zambia is in Southern Africa. So we share borders with Zimbabwe, like south of us, Malawi, like east, Namibia, west, and then like the DRC and Tanzania, like north. So yeah, Zambia is a landlocked country. We have over 72 different languages or dialects that are spoken in the country. My mom's side of the family is from the southern part of Zambia, so the southern province. So we are like Tonga and Ila, like those are our tribes on my mom's side. My dad's side is Mambwe, but most of them speak Bemba, which is like one of the most commonly spoken languages in Zambia. I didn't growing up, I spent more time with my mom's side. And so I didn't really get to know, my dad's like culture that well because he passed away when I was very young. But they do speak Mambwe, and a lot of them live in the Copper Belt, which is another province in Zambia. I, however, grew up in Lusaka province, which is where the capital is, Lusaka. So yeah, I had a great time there from ages 0 to 10. And I was born in a neighborhood called Kawata. So I lived there the first 5 years of my life. Yeah, Kawata is like, it's grown a lot since the 90s when I was born. But before it was kind of like a smaller, I wouldn't even call it a suburb, just like a smaller neighborhood. I grew up going to like Kawata Market, which is where, you go to buy all your groceries, you go to get your hair done, you go to probably do like business related things too. Like if you want to like print stuff, like markets just have everything that you need. And so grew up
Sounds like
there.
Walmart, but more wholesome and
Hilarious.
less.
Actually, yeah, right. You can do everything at
Yeah.
Walmart. Hilarious.
Yeah, but like, yeah, very not corporate and just
Yeah.
very just
Less
real,
capitalistic. Yeah, like.
Yes. Very, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, so grew up there, and then my mom left the US when I was 5 and my brother was 3. So she moved to the US, and she, like a typical immigrant, just started to kind of find her way, do different jobs. Eventually she became a nurse, and then she was able to bring us over. But the 5 years that she was away, I lived with my grandmother in Olympia Park, which is like, it's a nicer neighborhood just because she's like, my grandpa was military, like he was in the Zambian army. And so, they do, Zambia does a really good job of like, I guess, taking care of like military families. And so, we got access to like a really nice house and neighborhood. Well, my grandma did. And luckily we got to stay with her for 5 years. And so a lot of like my childhood memories, obviously from 5 to 10, were at my grandmother's house. I grew up, just surrounded by family, my uncles, cousins. So yeah, I have really just awesome memories of those, like, I guess, more formative
Yeah.
years. So yeah, I think that laid like a solid foundation for, I guess that's where I learned like what my values were. We grew up going to church. We were, Seventh-day Adventists. So that shaped a lot of like, just my values and, the things that I was interested in. And so,
Seventh-day
yeah,
Adventist.
yeah, yeah.
So is is that the prominent religion there, would you say?
Ooh, ooh. There's a lot of Seventh-day Adventists, but I think for a lot of Tongas, so I just identify as Tonga, because, that's my mom's side. So a lot of Tongas just happen to be Seventh-day Adventists. I don't know what the history there is, but I'm sure, the missionaries were doing a lot once they got to Zambia, and they're probably really active in the southern province where my mom is from. And so, yeah, lots of Seventh-day Adventists. And so, yeah, my grandma's Seventh-day Adventist. Pretty much all of my mom's side is Seventh-day Adventist as well. But there are other, denominations, Catholic, Baptist, Pentecostal, you name it. Yeah, across the country. We're very like, we consider ourselves a Christian nation. So we're like very religious, which comes with lots of things.
All
But
of the things.
yeah.
Would you say that, because you said missionaries, and I forget about the missionary aspect, that it could be like we come in peace. So when I think of like, obviously, I mean, Ethiopia has its own Christianity predating white people. But when I think of like African countries being Christian nations, I just think of colonization. But you said specifically like missionaries.
Well, I mean, they were all there at the same time, right? Like, yeah. So, I mean, I just said missionaries because I was specifically trying to, I guess, think through why so many of my family members are Seventh-day Adventist. But I would imagine that, and also from, what we've learned about colonization, as they were, taking over our countries, extracting resources from our countries, making our countries, their homes essentially, and building them in a way that made sense for them. As they were doing all of those things, a lot of, the missionaries were, spreading the gospel, and I'm sure that the colonizers and the people in power made it easy for them to do so. And it probably also helped make a case for their takeover. Like, oh, it's not just economic reasons or for like exploitation. It's like also because we want to spread the gospel.
God wants us to do this.
Yeah. So
I love all the words and the terms, the names. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I've been saying Tanzania this whole time, but when you said Tanzania, I was like, whoa. Is that how you pronounce it?
That's how I grew up. Yeah, that's how I grew up pronouncing it.
I'm sure your way is right. I'm sure my way is completely wrong.
No, I just learned it too. I say the same way, Queen, the same way you. And I just like it was this year's old, today years old, like this meaning this year that I've learned that you say it differently.
Tanzania.
So speaking of pronunciations,
no worries.
Your name, Nduulwa, what does it mean?
Nduulwa.
Say it. Sorry, can you give us a lesson one more time? Am I saying it right?
Yeah, so it's pronounced Nduulwa. Well, sometimes I end up even like saying it because I'm so used to trying to have people understand, like, pronounce it properly. So, but it's like my family would call me Nduulwa.
Okay, with the W.
Nduulwa. With the W. Okay, because we were listening to the podcast and we were like rewinding it every time you said your name, and I thought I didn't hear the "wa" sound. I thought I just heard Nduulwa, but it's
I think I say kind of fast sometimes, like Nduulwa. But then it's like because of the two U's, you're supposed to like kind of stretch it out and say like Nduulwa.
Okay.
Yes.
So what is the meaning of it? Do you know?
Oh, yeah. So I was named after my great grandmother. And it really, I think it's like a rough translation, but like my mom has told me it means like spoken about or speaking of. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Love that.
So yeah, I'm like, okay, I'll take it if, hopefully I'm being spoken about in a
Yeah,
good
like your
way.
name,
Positive way, right? I
your
love
name
that.
is on the tongue of you're like, people gonna know your name. We gonna know her name. You
Oh
know?
Yeah,
goodness. Well, hopefully for good
Yeah,
things,
absolutely,
only.
for sure, for sure.
definitely great things. So you transitioned to
Yes.
Nebraska.
Which is
What
very
did you
Yeah.
interesting.
know? What did you know about America before coming? What was your perception?
Ooh, great question. Um, Let me see. I mean, we learned about America through TV, you know. I grew up watching a lot of the same shows, because we had like our version of cable. So I watched all the same cartoons, Boomerang, I watched Nickelodeon. Um, what else? Yeah, MTV, I'm pretty sure I watched. I would watch Oprah daily pretty much. And so a lot of my understanding of the United States came from, yeah, the media and just what we see um, on television, music too. So, obviously the US does a really great job of like marketing itself as like the best number one, country in the world. And so I think a lot of people outside of the US, at least back in the day, thought the same. And so we just thought we were like going to the land of and milk and honey.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, we were just like, oh my gosh, we're going to this place. It's just so clean. Like that's one thing that everybody kept saying, like, oh, there's no dust, there's like no dirt. It's just so
It sounds
clean.
scary.
That's so interesting that you talk about that, because I literally was just talking to this about my friend about like how America sells itself as this exceptional place. And that for me, that's the insanity of America. Like for you to
Delusion.
have like you even said like the people believe America to be this exceptional place, and then like like America's a narcissist. Like you really think that like you are as great as you say you are, as great as like your Constitution and your Pledge of Allegiance say you are, but you're literally a monster. Like you're insane, you're a
Yeah.
bully, and then but like it's marketed itself so well. PR, their PR game is strong.
But to play devil's
Absolutely.
advocate, though, there are a lot of opportunities here that other people aren't afforded, but it is unfortunate that it does paint itself in this light to where no, we're just perfect, but it's like we're not. But there is, speaking to other people from different countries or whatever, it's like I was talking to my friend, my Tinder friend, and he was saying like y'all's depression or what y'all would consider depressed here is like a way of life from where I'm from. People sometimes have no idea where the next meal is going to come from, which obviously we have homeless people here too, but a lot of them are homeless for various reasons, drugs, and just like don't want to be a part of whatever society we have going on. But I can say America has its good parts, but it's also very fucked up at the same time. Like, let's be real. It really is. But the marketing behind America, it's unfortunate because for you to be in some country looking at, oh, this is what America's going on, I don't like the representation they have of Black women in the media. And that's another thing. It's like, I wish we could control the narrative a little bit. I don't know who has the strings, but I guess back then it was different. But now it's like when you turn on, I'm sure, television in a different country, you're seeing a lot of Black women twerking, fighting. And it's like, I don't like the picture it paints. But I just had to say that America does have its good points, but the marketing is just jacked up.
Yeah, I guess
That's
so
fair.
yeah, there's obviously like privileges that Americans have that other countries don't, but to the detriment of other countries. That's what I'm speaking of. I'm more so speaking of America's bully ways, murdering ways, colonizing ways, making your co-country think that you're going to war on behalf of them, but no, you're actually going to pillage and plumage and kill anybody in sight who gets in the way of your interests. Like, those are the fucked up things that I'm talking about, America.
No, behind the scenes.
But anyways, I don't want to talk about America. We're here to talk about you and transition to Nebraska and how that was for you.
Which is random, Nebraska.
I know. And funny, when I was making my tea this morning, I found this cup and it's like a Starbucks. I don't know if it's like my mom's or what, but I'm like, I didn't even know we had this, but it says Nebraska on it. And it's got like the corn, like Cornhusker State.
Stuff. Come on, represent.
Yeah. I was like, let me use this cup. But yeah, growing up in Nebraska was interesting. Yeah, like as soon as I got there, it was just very different. Like, thankfully, I was able to adjust pretty okay because, because of our former colonizers, like English. English is Zambia's official language. And so, at least from that standpoint, it was easy to transition because, communication wasn't a barrier or anything like that. I think once I got to school, it was just different because for the first time ever, I was a minority. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. And like my classroom looked like the classrooms I saw on TV with like, with the white boys and the white girls. And, they were very comfortable, talking back or, just being loud and obnoxious. And I just was like, I've not really seen this. Like growing up, back in Zambia, we're very much like in school, we're taught to be like I guess practice, what is it? Is it corporal punishment or capital punishment? Where
corporal, I think, yeah,
corporal
punishment.
Capital is like very severe, right? Like it's when they kill people and stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I don't know.
The less severe one. Yeah, the less severe one, corporal. So it's like, at least back when I was in like grade school back home, like, you would get smacked and, whipped if you were, misbehaving.
That might be capital punishment.
I should look it up.
Corporal punishment is a physical punishment, which is intended to cause physical pain to a person. So yeah.
What's capital punishment? Is there such thing? Did we make that up?
I think capital is more severe, like you said.
Okay.
Like the jail system.
Yeah, like
okay.
Yeah, but anyway, so yeah, coming to the US, I just was like, it was so interesting to see like y'all aren't scared of getting beat up. Because, for us, it's like, I guess that was a way they tried to control classrooms and just keep people focused and calm in class. Like, you were always scared, like, oh, I'm going to get whooped. And it's actually really disturbing when you think about it. And I hope it's not still going on. Like when I talk to my little cousins and stuff, they don't necessarily tell me about like getting whipped at school, but yeah, it was a thing. Thankfully, I was like pretty well behaved, so I only got whipped or punished just a couple times, but it's like an actual thing. And so transitioning to the US and just knowing like, oh, like you can talk back, you can speak your mind, you can challenge teachers and challenge authority. I just was like, I was mind blown. So I remember that being like one of the things that I had to kind of get adjusted to, which I think is a good thing because, kids should be able to express themselves and ask questions. But I would say just back home, like culturally, and even outside of school, like in the home, you're very much just, do as I say, you can't really talk back. You can't really, question your parents or your grandparents. So anyway, it was an interesting thing to like observe once I.
That was a white school, by the way. Black schools, you still can't do that. Like I think just culturally in general, white people just really don't have control of their kids. But when you go to a Black school, because my son went to a Black school and they still whip him. Like when he was in, and this was in Tulsa. Yeah, it just depends on the school. Deborah Brown and Sankofa. He went to a school called Sankofa. So like they are very, they will whoop you.
I think that's the exception these days. No, nobody's doing that in America. I don't feel like they're doing that like broadly in the States. Like that's very
no,
outdated,
not broadly,
no.
but
Yeah,
like the Black schools that aren't whipping, your teacher will charge you up. White schools probably not so much, but I went to a Black high school and they don't whoop you, but they didn't take disrespect because I had Black teachers, So it's just, I think it's different. But Nebraska, I'm quite sure they ran amok. So
yeah, I think also go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say there was definitely like accountability, I guess. Like detention, school suspension, like those things existed. But I think before you get to that extreme of a level, there wasn't really anything like, I guess, in between, like, nobody was getting whooped or even like scolded, I don't think. But yeah, just a different dynamic. But it's interesting to know that, that was your son's experience and that still exists, like, in like modern times.
But you speaking to, also I feel like you spoke to not just like blatant disrespect, but just like assertiveness, asking a question, not just taking anything that's handed to you, and how that is more so the healthy side of kids being able to, one, be seen as equal, seen as having this what do you call it, autonomy to be able to speak up for yourself, to be able to challenge what's given to you. And oftentimes I think those measures that y'all are both speaking to can result in a child just taking on anything and not having that autonomy, not being able to assert themselves in spaces where it's needed,
Absolutely.
There's a fine line for me. Child needs to still be a child, but it's I ain't gonna lie to you, some of these white kids are disrespectful, and I'm not trying to be racist or whatever the word would be, I guess prejudice, but I can see that there's like no home training. They have this free will to just say and do whatever, and I really think that's why they're out here doing some crazy stuff. But I'm not trying to get us canceled, so I'm gonna limit what I say in regards to them. But continue with your Nebraska experience. I'm really interested.
That's your culture. That was sounds like a culture shock for you. Like, what was it like building, like, or finding community when you moved there or in the States?
Yeah, so thankfully, one of the reasons my mom moved to Nebraska was because she knew other Zambians in Nebraska. And so they were like, oh, come here. It's like a good place to raise a family. It's affordable. And so, she joined like some of her friends. And so growing up, thankfully, like outside of school, I knew other Zambians, and that helped the transition, and that helped me not feel so, like isolated, or like there just wasn't anyone around me who like really understood like who I was. But then in school, obviously I went to a predominantly white, I guess, school district. And so most of my classmates were white. And then, we had like Black students, like, African-American students and some African students, but I didn't really get to meet other African students, I think not until maybe high school or maybe like middle school, 8th grade. But yeah, I think for me, as soon as I saw Black people, I was like, yes. I was like, you don't, when you're young, 10 years old, you don't understand like, okay, we're different. You don't understand that, we have different backgrounds, different cultural just experiences and that sort of thing. But to me, at the time, whenever I would see just someone who was brown, I would just be so happy because I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, they look like me. We can be friends. And I don't have to feel like like I just felt like I saw I saw them in me in a way, or saw myself in them. And so it was just, I just gravitated towards, peers that looked like me. And thankfully, um, I think I was, yeah, welcomed pretty well. And I felt like I could make friends quite easily. Um, I think the hard thing was just like, uh, just being like the only, let's say like being the only African in class. It was just hard to figure out like, okay, like, how much of myself do I share, or, should I try and like just blend in and fit in,
Assimilate.
as possible. Yeah, assimilate really. And so I think like obviously I was, proud of my roots, proud of my culture. And whenever people would ask me like just silly questions about Africa, I'd always be the first one to be like, I didn't grow up hanging out in trees, people. Like, I didn't have, wild animals as pets, the typical questions that people ask because that's all they see about Africa on TV. Yeah, so I always like, was proud of like, where I was from. But then another part of me definitely wanted to, make friends and be able to like connect with people. So at times, like looking back, I think I did try and like just be like not as super African, if that it's even a thing. Like I just kind of um I just wanted to fit in. And like, even with my accent, I didn't want people to really know I had an accent. And so I do remember like, covering up, the way I spoke and, starting to say things the way my classmates would say things, because I'm like, oh, I don't need y'all like clowning me or making fun of my accent. And so, um, yeah, I guess that's just a part of the process, like, navigating like, okay, how am I going to show up in these spaces? And yeah, I think over time, like the older I got, the more I started to just really, really embrace, who I was, my Africanness, my Blackness. And, even like in high school, I remember we had like these, maybe it was like for like a social studies class where like people would represent their culture in some way. I like brought kapenta, which is like a Zambian dish. It's like little fish. It's not like sardines, but it's like they're these tiny little fish. I don't know what the English name for them is, but it's like looking at them, I'm sure most people were like, "What is that?" But I think I had my mom maybe make some, and I took that to school, and I was like, yeah, this is what we eat. And so it got like more fun to just be myself the older I got, and just kind of share my culture, where I was from. But yeah, it's yeah, that was a bit of like, I guess, my experience adjusting. And obviously because I've spent most of my life in the United States, I think in many ways, I've become very American. And so that's been interesting because I think at times, yeah, like I just wanted to really like blend in with a lot of like, even like my Black American friends. And sometimes I'd be like, oh, like you just feel like so in sync, and like, oh, like I'm just the same as my girls. But then it's like, oh no, but we're still different, which I think is not a bad thing, that like we found things like in common. And I learned to love things about them and their culture, and then they learn to love things about mine too. So yeah.
Yeah, I remember I was gonna ask you about that because I remember you saying on our previous call, you're like, I have Black friends, but then I'm like, I'm not like you. You were like this realization, we look the same, but we're not the same. And so I've went to
Yeah.
school. I've had friends. Like I had a friend from Trinidad, Trinidad, and she said we were in high school. She was like, she had came to America in middle school, I think, and she's like, I'm not like Black American girls, and I was just like, and what exactly is that supposed to mean? But I I think there is obviously the extremity where people will, because of like what Queen speak to, because of what they perceive as Black Americans, but there's this realization that there's just different type of we're just a different type of Black. We've had different experiences that went into the inner workings of us. So did that ever make you want like see them as other, but how did that shape how you saw Black American people and then yourself?
Honestly, I feel like maybe I was more aware of our differences than they were. I think a lot of times like it was just like, oh, like we're all just Black, and there weren't too many moments, I don't think, where there was like a hyper focus on our differences. So I think maybe just me being like, the immigrant or whatever, I think I was the one that was just, I maybe spent more time thinking about those things
that makes sense
than they did.
Wow, that makes sense, because I never, like, when I think of that and having Black friends from various countries, it wasn't something I was constantly aware of, but I feel like it was something that was more so at the top of their mind than anything. So wow.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. It's interesting. I think the older we get, the more, obviously we understand that, Blackness is big. It's Blackness looks very different, not even just around the world, but even just across America. Like it just looks very different. And I think growing up primarily with like African American friends, at least like during my high school experience, I think I was able to develop just a certain level of understanding that some of maybe my African friends who just more recently came to the States have. I think it's just different because I think if you come here as an older immigrant, I don't want to make blanket statements, but generally you've already you're kind of set in your ways, and maybe you already have like certain opinions pretty like I guess solidified just about different people, different cultures. And so I think it's been interesting to kind of learn about that and navigate that because I'm like I don't know, I just feel like I understand, and I feel like I'm able to like just maybe empathize and look at Blackness in different ways. But some people I think are still pretty like just narrow-minded, and they just say like, oh, these people are like this, these people are like that, and I just hate that so much, because I'm like people, let's just talk, let's just see each other for what we are, and not create these divides. But unfortunately they exist and will probably continue to exist.
You said an important word though, empathy. The empathy that is needed to be in community with each other, to understand each other, to understand the complexities of our different experiences around the world. One of my favorite episodes that you had was with, I think, is it Esther?
Yeah, Esther Arma.
Yes, I love the episode.
She's so awesome.
Was it called Black Grace? What did she call it?
So revolutionary Black race is like a concept that she's come up with essentially to basically as like a way we can like get to a point of like I guess cross-cultural understanding, like within like Black cultures. Like she talks a lot about like intraracial healing, which she feels we haven't like focused on much in comparison to like and interracial like intra versus inter. So like, you know, inter would be like, you know, relations between like, let's say black folks and white people, and just like trying to come to like some sort of like trying to reconcile, given just the history of, you know, just how this world has come about. And so intra-racial healing, essentially, she talks about is like us being able to like relate to each other in just like a more like a gracious way. And I think it's like just really beautiful what she does. And I hope like a lot of people, you know, check her out, read her book, because she spent a lot of time, you know, diving into this topic and just exploring how we can like better understand each other, better just extend each other grace, so that we can see each other for who we are and like go from there and like build from there. So yeah, that was one of my favorite episodes, and I need to listen to it again.
Yes, which was going to be one of my favorite questions. So we're already in it, talking about your podcast, Dear Diaspora, and it says it's centering Africa's diaspora. I want to, from your definition, tell me who is Africa's diaspora. And I say that because recently I saw YouTuber talking about Tanzania's new call for people to return. And they were like, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but they were like, they're not talking about all y'all. They're talking about specifically about people who have left their country and moved abroad. And they're talking about they are the diaspora. So I want to know. So I'm like, oh, the diaspora can mean different things to different people based on what they're talking about. Who's African diaspora on Dear Diaspora? Who are you writing a letter to?
Ooh, see, this is like something I always thought about, and I always like, yeah, I just spent a lot of time thinking through like, okay, what does this mean? So when I first started it out, like if you listen to like episode 1, I literally was like, I'm rooting for everybody Black, and I want this to be like a space for like, you know, to like really celebrate the accomplishments of like Black folks around the world. So that would encompass, you know, like African, I guess, migrants, people who've left the African continent, like, you know, recently, obviously. And then in that definition, I did put like African Americans like in that definition, because I think when I was like doing my research, I looked up how the African Union defines the African diaspora, and basically it defines the African diaspora as just like everybody who's a descendant of the continent, like basically all the Black people who have Black people who are there at the moment, and then the Black people who have left through, you know, various, you know, methods, just at different points of time. So the African diaspora, according to the African Union, unless they've changed it, is like just all Black people around the world. And so as I was like putting together the podcast, I struggled a little bit, because I'm like, okay, this podcast has the potential to just be all over the place, because if you're saying this is a space for every single Black person, like I feel like it's going to be hard to find like my audience, you know, it's going to be hard to like maybe let's say focus on like certain topics, because it's gonna, yeah, if I talk about like, okay, the Black immigrant experience, that's going to bring in certain people. If I talk about just, you know, Blackness in general, it's going to bring in different people. And so I think that's something that I struggled with, honestly, throughout, because I was like, wait, is this for like African immigrants based in the US and other, let's say, Western nations? Or is this like for like all Black people? And that's something that I think throughout, I don't know that I ever really got to a point where I was like, this is who it's for. Like, I think I became just open to anyone who's got some sort of interest in the continent. Like, this podcast is for you. And so when I did change like my descriptions and stuff, I said like Africa-centered conversations about culture, business, you know, politics, like all those things. And so basically, if you have some sort of interest or connection to the continent, like it's like this is the space for you. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I mean, I already know how it is to, you know, have this idea. You're going to, yeah, the figuring out, you know, what we're doing and who is it for, and what do we want to communicate? What do we want to accomplish? I totally understand that. So I'm curious as to when did you know you wanted a podcast, and what before you even have, like, obviously I feel like the show took shape, sounds like, as you made it, like before, like your initial thoughts were you somebody who was like, I want to do I always want to do a podcast, and then it's like, well, what am I gonna do a podcast about? Or was it like more so, these are my values, this is what I care about, and I want to find ways to bring this, you know, share this with the world?
Yeah, it was definitely the latter. I never like dreamed of starting a podcast. But yeah, like I think it really came from, so I went to grad school for business, so like I have an MBA, and like during my like just my coursework or just, you know, different classes that I took, I just was like super curious about like why Africa was never talked about. Like I did like a whole class on like doing business in China, where, you know, part of the class was like going to China and like, you know, learning about, you know, just like the business landscape there and the relationship, you know, China has with the United States. Like I was like, wouldn't it be so cool to do this like, you know, in an African country? And I was just like wondering like, why not, you know? And so I think as I started to kind of just seek out information, I just became just very curious about like, okay, what's it like to do business in Africa? Because, you know, in all of my, you know, schooling, I had never had a class that was focused on like African business or African entrepreneurship. And so I just wanted to know for myself. I'm like, okay, yeah, what are folks doing on the continent? And then it kind of evolved into um, like I just didn't know how accessible a lot of folks would be. Like, you know, if I wanted to like interview entrepreneurs on the continent, I was like, I don't know if that's gonna be like feasible or sustainable. And so I was like, oh, like, what if I focus on folks that are Africans but based in the United States, for instance, or just, you know, outside of the continent. So that's how I started kind of reaching out to really people in my community to start with, just like the people that I knew were doing like really interesting things, like in Omaha, Nebraska to start with. So I had some of them on the podcast, and then it just like went from there. Yeah, just the more I learned about, you know, different like industries and just different spaces, I was like, oh, like I'd love to talk to someone who's building like, you know, like a health tech company. I'd love to talk to someone who's like starting like a new like Afro festival or something. Like it just kind of grew from there, but really from the onset, it was just about like, wanting to hear like how people are doing business essentially, and just building things, and people that were like of African descent, because I just was not seeing that at all. Like during my classes, I had one, I think there may be just maybe three Black women total in like our MBA class. And one of the girls I was friends with, Nadia, she was from Togo. And so aside that connection, there were like no other Black people I was able to like really connect with, and like, just, like shoot idea, whatever the expression is. Yeah, bounce ideas off of, and just like, that was just really missing. And yeah, and so I just was like, okay, let me find out for myself. Like, let me start doing some digging. And then it eventually turned into like, okay, let me launch a podcast, because I had already been listening to like business podcasts, just trying to do research and stuff. And I was like, oh, this is like the perfect medium, because then I get to like connect with folks, like really dig into like, the whys of them like starting these businesses. And then I just also just ultimately wanted to see like how they saw themselves like connecting whatever they were doing to the continent, at some point. So yeah, that's how it sort of started. And then it just like evolved into a whole bunch of different things over the 3 years.
I'm definitely gonna have to check it out. I'm super into, Ray already knows when it comes to just business and all of the things that show entrepreneurship, I am really just engaged in. But the fact that you specifically were, let me reach out to Africans that are based in America, I think that's an interesting just take on it. So I would love to be able to. I know you're no longer recording, right? Is that?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
It's like bittersweet, but I was doing it for like 3 years, over 3 years. And I just was like, I feel like I accomplished what I wanted to. Like I learned what I needed to. And obviously you never stop learning, but that doing so through that particular medium, I felt like I just reached like a stopping point. But it's been like a really great journey. And I've had guests that are, it's not just like been African immigrants. Like I've had guests that are, Black American, but there's always been some tie to the continent in some way.
And the work that they're doing.
Yeah.
Focus. Did you have any like shocking conversations? I want to know the most shocking, or maybe the most thing you learned, or your favorite. Like, tell us about the episodes.
Oh, shocking. Well, my podcasts were very much yeah, I don't know that they were like I guess formatted to like really have like anything like
a shock
shocking.
factor, right? No shock factor.
Yeah, they were very just like kind of, straightforward, just trying to get to know folks, what they were building.
Fits your personality. Sounds like
yeah. Very much so.
We're the wild children, right?
Yeah, we're like, where's the shocking? Where's the shocking episodes? Where's the drama?
I mean, there's got to be room for that though, and I love it. And sometimes it's good to be able to like push boundaries and push buttons and call things out. And I love the honesty of y'all's platform. And I wish mine had been a little bit more like that. I think I was trying so hard to be super like buttoned up and polished. But anyway,
It's room for it all though. I love listening to your conversation. I felt like it was just like smooth conversations, which I adore. I think it was very conversational. I felt like the questions are great. It just felt like your conversation just flowed, and obviously very intentional and meaningful conversation. What would you say is like your favorite or something you learned the most from?
Ooh, wow. I really loved the conversation that I had with Yeve Suanda, I believe. Yeah, she wrote like this children's book. She's like from Zimbabwe originally, and she wrote a children's book to teach like her daughter really how to speak Shona and Ndebele, which are, you know, languages spoken in Zimbabwe. And we just like dove deep into like yeah, all things like language and culture. And I think I had like a really big aha moment in that episode, because I think I've put a lot of pressure on myself to be like, you know, just a perfect Zambian, or, you know, or like, oh, I gotta be able to speak the language. I gotta be able to be super knowledgeable about Zambia. And it's like, growing up, because, you know, I spoke English most of my life, I was a like a receptive bilingual, meaning I understood everything that was being said to me, but speaking back, I wasn't really like super strong in it. And that's something that, um, you know, like growing up, like my mom was, you know, always at work. So it's not like there was like an intentional, like, hey, I want you to learn the language. I want you to be able to speak it. So it's like here and there, I would, you know, speak it with her, but it's just never really flowed out naturally. And that's something that I've just been hard on myself about, because I'm like, I can't say I'm Zambian and not and not know how to, you know, fluently speak, you know, like my native languages. And so yeah, with that, you know, after speaking with Yeve, she was like, yes, she wants to teach her daughter her local languages, but she understands that her like achieving like perfect fluency may not happen. And it's like, it is what it is, given her daughter was born in the US, is going to grow up in the US. When her daughter goes to school, it's all English, right? And so it's like the, you know, the language learning is going to happen, you know, just during the times like, you know, her daughter's at home, and, you know, they have, when they're able to have that quality time together. And just her being like, if she learns and embraces it, great. But if, you know, it's kind of like a more difficult journey, like, it is what it is. Like, I've done my best to like try and like, you know, share this part of our culture with her. And so for me, I was like, oh, like, I don't know. It's like one of those things where you just don't think like, okay, it's okay that this is just how things have turned out, right? Like, obviously, if you leave a country at a young age and you move to, you know, another English speaking country where you're not exposed to your language in like a super intentional way, and, you know, the limited time you get to spend with like your mom, you know, there aren't like Tonga lessons happening, like obviously you're not going to be fluent. And it's like, I think that was just like personally for me, just like
Take
a
that
light
burden
bulb.
off. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like,
Mhm.
okay, like, it's not the end of the world if
Mhm.
I'm not like able to, you know, speak to my grandma in like 100% Tonga. Like, it's not the end of the world. Like, my
Mhm.
grandmother understands, you know, that most of my life has been lived outside of the US, and she's never put that pressure on me, and no one's ever put that pressure on me really. It's just, I think it's come from just myself wanting to be like, I gotta be perfect at this and that, including like, you know, language, you know, knowing and understanding my language. So yeah, I think that was like one of my favorite, because it just like felt like, okay, I feel just yeah, the weight was kind of taken off.
Relieved.
Yeah, I felt relieved, and just like knowing like, okay, I'm gonna do my best to continue, you know, practicing Tonga, learning Tonga. I hope to be able to teach my children Tonga, but then if they're not going to be fluent in Tonga, like I won't be like a bad mom. Like I would have tried my
Absolutely
best.
not. You'll be totally fine.
Yeah, like I would have tried my best. And it's like, I think that just like, yeah, prior to that conversation, I never looked at it that way. And I was just like, oh, okay. And now, like, you know, since then, my mind's just, it's just, I guess, opened up to just different ways of looking at things beyond just like, you know, like language and culture. That's like sort of applied to like other, you know, aspects of my life where I'm like, oh, like I don't have to do certain things a certain way, or I don't have to be a certain way. I don't, there's nothing that you have to do, right? Like, um,
But just
so
be, but literally just be.
Just be, exactly, just
Yeah.
be.
So
yeah.
what do you think contributed though? One of the last questions I want to ask before I turn it over to Queen and we play a little game. What do you think contributed to, because I know you like at what point, like it's felt need to assimilate. And then you said there was a point where you started to be proud of who you are, embraced who you are and where you're from. What contributed to that? Because I feel like that could be very hard. And even if you're not from another country, even if you're a Black American, you know, we often find ourselves in spaces where we will assimilate and go to total opposite just to survive in certain spaces.
So your question is what contributed to me?
Yeah, like what, because you said at first you felt the need to assimilate, and then you said there was a point in your life where you're like, you know, like this is who I am. I'm proud of where I'm from. Do you think it was a parent? Like were you raised to, was that important in your household to keep the aspect of you, or?
That's a really good question. You know, I think growing up, my mom has always been she's always been really great about encouraging us to just be ourselves and to love ourselves, to be proud of like who we are. So I think it definitely started there. And I think it's different though. Like you hear that at home and you're like, okay, great. But when you go out into the world, you go out into school and you know, you're interacting with different people. Like it's you carry that with you obviously, but then it's also different because you're like now interacting with people from all over the world, and you as a human, you know, you want community, and you have to kind of think through, like I was saying earlier, like, okay, how do I show up in these spaces? But I think like as I got older and I saw even like my Black American friends like be super bold and embracing of their cultures, I think seeing that was like inspired me honestly to be like, oh, like for instance, I think when we first talked, I mentioned I was on the step team, you know, and so like my friends and me, I think like freshman year of high school, you know, we didn't fit in with the cheerleaders and the dance team girls. We were just like, okay, let's start something like on our own. And yeah, we started a step team and we did that all 4 years of high school. And obviously, you know, stepping is like a part of, you know, African American culture, and there's like lots of history with that. And so I think just seeing them in a very white, rich school being like, we're gonna, you know, like, yeah, you wouldn't think that the school we went to, Westside High School, would have a step team. I'm sure people would be shocked, but we did it. Like we started it. That was like our thing all 4 years. And so I think seeing them just unapologetically be themselves, unapologetically embrace their culture and like, you know, showcase and share their culture, that inspired me to be like, oh, like I can do the same thing. Like yes, you know, I just love all things, you know, step team, and I love being a part of this. But then I also have my own like unique background that I can like bring to the table and like share with people. And so, yeah, I never really thought of it that way, but I think seeing that kind of almost gave me like a permission,
Mission.
yeah, to like do the same for myself. And then it just grew even more, once I got to college and I got to be like just really in community with other folks that were just as like passionate about, all things Black and African culture. It just like, yeah, came out even more around that time. And so, yeah, I would say that was like the largest contributor, at least like it set like a really solid foundation for me, to like, just embrace who I was.
It sounded as if also when you were sharing that story about when you brought the dish from where you were from to like show and tell, it sounded as if that was well received as well. So I'm quite sure that gave you, more
Yes,
comfort in sharing who you were and, who you are in your culture. Because you could have clearly
absolutely.
had a traumatic experience, like, kids are cruel, so that could have went
Yeah,
left. The fact that, they embraced your culture and the dish that you brought, you're like, oh, okay, I can share me. I'm sure that
yes,
kind of helped them. That's good though. I think it's
I
important
absolutely.
love.
for people to be able to show up and be themselves because America is such a melting pot of everything. Like you said, even Ray's experience growing up in, we're both American, right? But she had a totally different experience growing up in Oklahoma than I did in Texas.
Mm,
So it's important that we have these platforms just to show up as ourselves.
But I love that.
absolutely.
I love that you were given permission. I love that, like, that interconnectedness of being in community with Black Americans and you being from the continent and y'all creating things together and them showing up in their full selves and them giving you permission, that representation to show up as your full self. That's so important, so key. And I love ending on that note. We do want to kick it over to some questions. Queen is going to lead us into. Then we want to end with, how to stay in contact with you and what we can, what's next for you. So, Queen.
Awesome.
Yes. So first off, have you heard of the game We're Not Really Strangers?
I don't think so, actually.
Okay, good. So Ray and I, we literally just who told us about it? Was it Mama that brought it up?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's a card game and it asks various questions. We realized some questions are, geared towards people that kind of really know each other a little bit, but then there are some that are more broad. And so I think it would be fun to ask you. I only took screenshots to like 4 or 5 questions, maybe we'll see. But I wanted to see what your response would be to a couple of them. So are you
Sure.
ready?
Yes, yes, I am.
Game show vibes. Okay. Let me see. Let me pull them up here. Okay, so the first question is, what is something you wouldn't want to change about yourself? That you would not want to change about yourself?
Ooh. I wouldn't want to change, I guess, how sensitive I am.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
Relatable content.
that. I
Yeah.
love that. So hold on. When is your I ask
I'm a
everybody this.
Cancer. Yeah, I'm a
Okay,
Cancer.
I knew you was gonna say water sign.
Yep, yep.
Beautiful. I
Yes.
love cancers. Can't date them anymore, but I love them. I love you all as people.
And you know what's crazy? I haven't had the best experiences dating Cancers. So
There we
even
go.
one, so I get
That's
it.
hilarious. Okay, so we're gonna go to the next question. Let's see. What do you crave more of? Like, what are you craving more of?
Mm. And are these supposed to be one word answers or can I like,
However you want to answer them. It could be one word. It could be a whole podcast. Like, it doesn't matter.
what do I crave more of? I guess community. Yeah,
Yeah.
community. I want more of that. So I want to just continue doing things like this, actually plugging into like what's happening around me. So yeah, community for sure.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that for sure. Clearly, I think that's why Ray and I started this podcast. We're like, we need to build community.
Yes,
And we're doing it in our own virtual way, I guess.
absolutely.
Okay, so next question. What would your younger self not believe about your life today?
Wow. Ish, these are good questions. What would my younger self not believe?
Mhm.
Mm, that I feel like I'm thinking too deeply, but it's like I feel like my younger self would be surprised that I am able to assert myself and not be so afraid of what people think as I do so. I think that's something that's definitely changed for me.
Confidence.
Huh?
That confidence.
Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely.
When
Absolutely.
did you start asserting yourself? Like what changed?
Ooh, I'm not perfect at it. And it's something that I'm like
The
actively
practice.
working. Yeah, I'm practicing it all the time. Um, but I think it started maybe like 2019 is when I told myself like, okay, like I have to do this. And I think it's something that I was afraid to do, especially with um, romantic relationships and even with like friendships. I just was like, I just wanted to be like the easygoing person that never ruffled feathers. But I learned that like, my needs matter too. Um, and it's okay. And you should be able to like, ask for what you need. And so I think it all started like around 2019. And then, yeah, I just keep practicing it, as much as I can.
That's beautiful. It's also relatable content because I'm learning asserting myself. I think I've done it in ways in the past, but I'm doing it, like you said, in those romantic relationships, those friendships in general, and learning that asserting yourself is not negative. Like we, in those formative years, can often be sent the message that assertiveness is talking back, assertiveness is disrespect, or you're not allowed, or you're not worthy to assert yourself and take up space in that way. But oftentimes that passivity is coming at a cost of our own peace. So yeah, I'm happy for you.
Thank you. Happy for you too.
I love this. I probably assert myself too much. Somebody be like, I'm going to Florida. I'm like, girl, me too. I'm going with you. I need to chill though. Okay, so one more last question.
Okay.
What question are you trying to answer most in your life right now?
Oh my gosh, these questions are so okay. Maybe I'm like, yeah, I guess I'm like thinking too deeply.
I love your
I'm like,
reaction.
whoo,
I love it.
what am I? Sorry, one more time.
No, I was just saying I love your reactions. It's like, let me sip my tea real quick. Let me think. But yeah, what question are you trying to answer most in your life right now?
Um, I'm trying to answer like just what I want my life to look like, essentially, like lifestyle wise. Um, yeah, what sort of things do I want to experience? Um, you know, what, what am I looking for like in a romantic partner? That's like a big question for me. Um, yeah, and thinking through whether like the cookie cutter or like typical path is what I want to follow. Like, you know, married by a certain age, kids by a certain age. I think, yeah, those are just all things that I'm questioning right now. Like, okay, what do I want my life to look like?
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, you have the power to make it whatever you want it to be. Trust me.
Absolutely.
I think that was the last question. I'll save them. I mean, I took a couple of screenshots, but I'm like, I appreciate your vulnerability and your openness to answering these questions. They could be a little invasive, I guess, especially if you're not ready. I had to scroll through them. I'm like, probably not this question.
Those are great. Honestly, if you could send me those, yeah, I'd love to be able to
Yeah, I
ask.
can send you some screenshots. So it's an actual card game. So I think after this, I might order the actual card game on Amazon because Ray just took photos. I don't know if you had your hands on them one day, Ray, and you were just taking pictures of a couple of the cards, but we only probably have a fraction of the questions that is asked. So, but we've been asking these to people, I think, for the past couple episodes now, and it's giving a different perspective because obviously you're on here talking about one thing, but it's really more like, let me look deep into myself, and I really love them. I'm enjoying them. So yeah, I think I'm gonna order them for the actual show and incorporate this going forward. I don't know. We could talk about it, but I think it would be really cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna look into those cards too.
But I'll send you the screenshots of the ones that I sent you today, or the ones that I asked you today. But so where can the people find you?
Yeah, so you can find me. I think I'm the most active on Instagram. So my handle is just at Nduulwa, so at NDUULWA. So yeah, there. Or if you want to follow Dear Diaspora, I'm not actively releasing new episodes, but there's lots of content to scroll through. So you can find that handle at Dear Diaspora. And then also feel free to catch up on past episodes. They're over 60. Yeah, they're over 60 just wherever people listen to podcasts. So yeah, that's
commendable. 60 episodes. Congratulations on that and creating what you created. Is there anything that you are looking forward to in the future? I know you said you're yeah, I just want to work, and when can we expect?
Yeah, yeah, really. I mean, it's the summer, so I definitely just want to, have fun, relax, and rest as much as possible. I do have, my full time, my 9 to 5 that I'm doing, so that's keeping me busy. Yeah, beyond that, I guess I'm also thinking through how to continue just I guess building community with the folks that I've built community with through Dear Diaspora. So I'm just trying to figure out okay, what medium, if it's no longer a podcast, how do I stay in touch with all these amazing people who are just as excited about Africa's future. They're embracing their culture. They're Black unapologetically. I just want to continue to be in those spaces. And so I'm just trying to figure out what that could look like. So we'll see. And I'd love to keep y'all posted. And
for sure. I think there's definitely ways for
you have the Instagram.
Yes, right. Yeah.
I think there's definitely ways for you to evolve that show.
Active. I love the lagging. I love how we just keep talking over each other. Sorry, my internet is not strong. So if I'm lagging, my apologies. But I was just recommending, since you have an IG page that has following, being active on that and maybe going live sometimes to still create that community without the pressure of a podcast. I would tune in.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I mean that's a great idea. And I do have like maybe 100 people on my newsletter list. So that could be another
100 people. That's impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to bounce ideas off with you too, because I think about spaces that you created, spaces that Esther created, spaces that we're creating. I just feel like it's a very niche kind of way of content, and I think there's ways that we could build community, and I really would like us to see people like us collaborating in very special ways. So let's keep in
Yes.
contact. You can keep in contact with us at Black Around the World on Instagram. We're now on TikTok at Black Around the World. You can email us at Black Around the World, the podcast at gmail.com. What any other spaces that we're on? We want to be more like have more behind the scenes on our TikTok. So
and they still will not let me in. Every time I try to get in, it's like you've tried too many times.
Okay.
Oh no.
We'll figure it out because I created it all the way over here. But yeah, you can follow me personally at Amaray. Where can they find you?
Queenwood_Avenue, which is just AVE on Instagram. I'm more active on Instagram. If you find me on Facebook, shout out to you.
Yes, so Amaray
_
Forgot about that. I'm the underscore. Yeah. So thank you so much, Nduulwa, for coming on and talking with us. It was so great to be in conversation with you.
Wait,
yes,
we can't end it yet. We cannot end it yet. I have one last question that has been on my heart, and I was like, when am I going to jump in and ask this? This beautiful painting behind you. Who was the artist? Like, do you have any information about this artwork behind you?
Yes. So this is an amazing artist. I think I met / found on Instagram. His name is Afroscope. And he's Ghanaian. Yeah, he's Ghanaian. And so yeah, I have this one by him, and I have, I think, 2 more, maybe just 1 more of his that I can't wait to put up once I'm planning a move. So once I move, I'll get to decorate and stuff, but he's so talented.
I'm going to find him right now.
Yes,
I'm like,
Afroscope.
I loved it. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. Shout out to Afroscope. If you're into art, check them out because I am too.
Oh, yes, that's right.
And thank you for being with us. Now, I'm sorry, Ray. Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I was wrapping up with the conversation before you. P.S.
Okay. Good.
I love you, everybody. P.S. Where is that painting from?
So much.
Stay Black.
Right, thank y'all.
Thank you.
Yeah, stay Black. Bye-bye.
Bye.